Now, last week, the management of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, announced plans to relocate some of its key departments from Abuja to Lagos. According to the CBN, the initiative aims to ensure compliance with building safety standards and enhance the efficient utilization of office spaces, with 1,533 staff moved to other CBN facilities within Abuja, Lagos, and understaffed branches.
Following suit, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, via a memo dated January 15, 2024, and signed by the Managing Director of FAAN, Olubunmi Koko, ordered the relocation of the agency's headquarters from Abuja to Lagos. This has led to anxiety and outcry from many Nigerians and the Apex Northern Sociocultural Group, Arewa Consultative Forum, ACF. In a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Professor Tukur Muhammad-Baba, it described the plans as a ploy to further underdevelop northern Nigeria. Joining us this morning to discuss this is ACF National Publicity Secretary, the Professor Tukur Muhammad-Baba. Good morning, sir. Good to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Very good morning to you. Good to be with you today.
All right. Professor Muhammad-Baba, you had said that CBN's decision is against the interest of the northern and other parts of Nigeria. And we would like you to please expatiate on how and why you came to this conclusion.
Well, the CBN, the recent decision by the CBN or its announcement is only one in a series of moves designed clearly to undermine, we think, the interests of the nation and especially the northern parts of the country. It's not a new one. It started long ago, in fact, clearly during the Obasanjo regime, when immediately he came to power, one of the first things he did was to start dismantling some of the headquarters. He moved the headquarters of the Shippers Council, Nigeria Ports Authority, NIMASA, Railways. He all shifted them back to Lagos. And we saw the recent announcement by the central bank as a continuation of a well-orchestrated plan to dismantle the headquarters of the federal capital as enshrined in the Constitution. And we think this is just one of many examples. As you have just observed, the Ministry of Aviation also announced the decision to relocate the headquarters of FAN, Federal Airports Authority. On top of that, we came disturbingly against a letter written by a contractor who has been contracted to establish a plant in Katsina for assembling airport fire vehicles, claiming that Katsina is way out, there will be logistic problems. It should be stated clearly, he stated clearly that it should be relocated to the south or Abuja, gradually Abuja. I mean, it doesn't make sense. When a contractor wins a contract, we assume that the contractor bid for that contract based on its scope. All the specifications are given, and a year later you are turning up to say that, oh, this is not such a wonderful idea, as if the contractor is actually the owner of the project, and not just a contractor. So to go back to the issue, there are too many things happening, and we know for a fact that a lot of people had never been happy with the idea that the federal capital, the headquarters of the federation, the headquarters of the government should be moved from Lagos to Abuja. And the reasons for such a movement long ago are still very valid, if not more so. So we look at it as just a continuation, a deliberate attempt to slowly chip away at the power of the federal capital. And what a better way of doing it by removing all the financial assets. And then, of course, there is the so-called blue economy. You are moving everything to Lagos gradually. And on top of that, we read all over the news that there are plans to pump money to renovate Northern Barracks, the former seat of government. I mean, you are putting all this together, it points to a larger pattern. You can ignore the individual projects. But the larger pattern is clear. You are just putting the blocks one after another, so that we'll wake up one day and find that the building has been completed. Effectively, the federal capital has shifted from Abuja to Lagos in contradiction to constitutional provisions.
Constitutional provisions? Well,
yeah.
I want to understand what the interest in particular of the ACF is. Because you're talking about northern interest, and moving things away from northern Nigeria to Lagos. What exactly is the main interest of the ACF with where these offices are located? That's one.
The main interest of the ACF is the interest of the nation. Constitutionally, according to our constitution, the seat of government is in Abuja. And then when you shift all these institutions to just one section of the country, it seems that all the other sections put together are being shortchanged. Like I said, you go back to the reasons for setting up Abuja. Lagos was congested. There was the case made that all parts of the country should have a feeling of belonging in the seat of government. So we decided, we took up a virgin land and created a new capital, pumping a lot of money into infrastructure and other things. And then you now start removing them one by one. It's like me setting up my house and then gradually removing the kitchen equipment, removing the TV, dismantling some of the furniture. Slowly, you chip away at the skeletons. So that
but isn't it too early to raise, alarms? Because their explanation really is that there are buildings that the CBN has in Lagos that, underutilized, and they're really just trying to move some departments there. It's not like they're moving, the entire structure of the CBN and the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria to Lagos. I don't think that's what has been said, and my understanding, and maybe I've gotten it wrong, is that, the ACF is bothered, about how it is shortchanging northern Nigeria when these things are moved away from Abuja. Am I correct with that?
That's a legitimate concern. Like I said, you can ignore the individual, the small projects, moving one section from Abuja to Lagos, but there is a clear pattern. Like I said, it's not so much what the CBN said today. We are going back in history to 1999, when the former president, actual president, started moving a lot of agencies back to Lagos. And it's clear why he was doing that. Like I said, it started with NIMASA, Nigeria Ports Authority, Shippers Council, and the Nigerian Railway Corporations, after they have established offices in Abuja. And now you are moving them back. And then you are moving them back in a way that suggests that there is a clear pattern and there is a clear direction you are going. At the end of the day, all these things fit together. We are not concentrating just on the CBN announcement or the Ministry of Aviation. We looked at a whole series of movements. And like I said, you can ignore the individual movements, but not the general pattern.
So is the issue the fact that, and I hear you in terms of your concerns about how it would affect the North. Would you have felt differently if it was moved to some other part of the North and not Lagos? And what would be your reaction to those who argue that the several ministries that are maybe should be situated back closer to their catchment areas? For example, the Ministry of Petroleum should probably be moved back to Port Harcourt, or somewhere within the riverine areas. Because if you look at the Niger Delta, for example, many would argue that the resources, Niger Delta is, the highest contributor. They give us oil, but a number of these outcomes are used to develop the Federal Capital Territory. So what would be a response to those who argue that maybe the Ministry of Petroleum should be relocated back to Rivers State?
If there is a clear pattern of relocation for nearly all government MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies, one can understand. But like I said, you cannot ignore the fact that all of these movements have been one-sided back to Lagos. The question we're asking is, whatever happened to the reasons for leaving Lagos? Of course, you can decentralize everything. You can take the NNPC to the Niger Delta, you can take mining to Zamfara, and so on and so forth. But there are other things. You know, there is a lot of disparity. For example, you say Lagos is the financial capital, revenue, and so on. But look at one aspect, for example. Nearly all the banks have their headquarters in Lagos. So that all bank transactions in the whole country where you pay VAT is reflected not at the point you are generating that VAT, but in Lagos. The whole thing is, let's not run away. What is the obsession with Lagos and relocating MDAs to Lagos? If you have a coherent and well-planned strategy of decentralizing government agencies, one can understand. But why one-sided?
So if they had...
It depends on what you are presenting. You have to communicate, and then you have to enter into dialogue so that people understand exactly what is the motive, what are the objectives, what needs to be, what is expected to be achieved, and so on. And not just wake up one day and say you are moving into just one city, and so on. Let's have a clear strategy that we'll all sit down, discuss, and agree that such and such restructuring, such and such movement is in the overall interest of the country.
They've cited congestion. So, you know what, let's ask, will the ACF have felt more comfortable if these organizations were moved to another part of northern Nigeria and not Lagos? Is it really about Lagos?
It is about Lagos. I mean, we are asking a hypothetical question that we are dealing with concrete situations. What we have at hand is the movement to Lagos. If you want to talk about any part of northern Nigeria, then let's talk about it. But we are specific, and we're dealing with what is before us, not hypothetical situations. What could have happened if the movement is to my village? And so that is not the issue. We are talking not of if, not of but. We are talking of what has been presented to us. If there are problems, there are several ways of handling that.
Yeah. You can also go further, you know, with the conversation on how it is shortchanging northern Nigeria. I think you also mentioned that there's currently only 8 out of 40 directors recently appointed that are from the north. I mean, maybe it's a federal character principle, you know, challenge here or not. But, you know, go further, you know, with your thoughts on how this is shortchanging northern Nigeria, and of what benefit is it, you know, to northern Nigeria if these ministries are in, or these headquarters are in the Federal Capital Territory? In what ways do they benefit northern Nigeria?
There are several benefits. Let me go back to the issue that according to our constitution, the capital of the Federal Republic is in Nigeria. Now, of course, it will, if any part of the country is denied participation by employment, by services, and all others that go with the location of an MDA in that area, then of course the section is that portion, that part of Nigeria, it should change. We talk about employment, we talk about services, and so on. At any rate, what is the rationale when these agencies have built their headquarters in Abuja and you are relocating them? Then what happens to those buildings? I mean, I think we should look at it from the point of view of the interest of the nation and not just northern Nigeria. I think the ACF, for example, I know the ACF is an ACF within the context of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not just the North.
All right. Let's now talk about the way forward. So what next? What does the ACF want from the CBN, from the FAAN, from the MASA, and all these other agencies you've made reference to? And should these agencies not grant the request of the ACF, what next?
Should? I think I'm missing you.
I was asking what the next steps are. You've made your concerns clear that you do not want these organizations and these bodies to be relocated back, to Lagos. So the question now is, what is your ask? And if this ask is not met by the federal government, what next?
It's not a war. It's not a fight. It's a negotiation. The next line of action is to actually go back and look at the rationale. What were the reasons? Can they be addressed? Today, there is technology. All these arguments about people moving from Abuja to Lagos to do their work, there is technology. I'm talking to you from Birnin Kebbi. The alternative would have been to drive to Abuja, or you come to Birnin Kebbi. Technology has made it very easy today. Most of the things that we do can be done online. I am talking to you. You are reaching the whole world. I mean, there are alternatives. What is the next thing to do? The best thing to do is to now look at the reasons and subject them to impartial analysis. What is the problem? What needs to be done? Let's find a way to do those things that need to be done without shortchanging anybody or without people feeling a sense of alienation or a sense of exclusion or a sense that things are being removed from them to be taken over to the advantage of some other sections of the country. Lagos has a lot, and nobody begrudges Lagos for what it has. But then we need an even development in this country. The way we are going, when there are disparities in infrastructure, disparities in opportunities, disparities in inclusion, and so it's not good for the political economy.
Yeah, but at the same time, what would your response be to those who say that this is a distraction? Because anybody can complain. I mean, anybody who's from Benue State, can also say, why don't I also have, a headquarters in my own region? Someone who's from Delta State can say the same thing. So, any other part of the Southwest, and so isn't the ACF, by its statements or by its demands, seemingly, creating more distractions and, tribalistic statements, to favor themselves with these demands?
I beg your pardon, the ACF is not a tribal organization. This ACF is Arewa Consultative Forum. And I think Arewa, or the North, has over 200 tribes. You cannot talk about that being a tribalistic organization unless we don't know what tribe is. That's number one. Number two, you talk to those agencies of government that started this problem. It was not started by the ACF. It was not started by any state in the North, and so on. I mean, who started it all? You seem to be getting it wrong. And I repeat, ACF is not and cannot be a tribal or religious organization or whatever. It is a consultative group, and it is a group or a conglomeration, like I said, of over 200 ethnic groups and over 140 million people. So it cannot be. It cannot be.
All right, Professor.
If there is something wrong, ask those who started it all.
All right, Professor Tukur Muhammad-Baba, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we hope to get some updates regarding the ACF in this matter, and we hope to find that there can be some peaceful middle ground that can be found.
There is always, this is a peaceful middle ground. That is what we're raised. Like I said, we are a consultative. We are open to consultation by anybody who has something to contribute. Right. Thank you so very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time.